fight for your honor, you will learn respect, and suffering will be your teacher.
3 years ago today, I was banished. I lost it all. I want it back. I want the Avatar. I want my honor, my throne. I want my father not to think I'm worthless.
I've never met a single person who has considered Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender as a villain. Maybe an antagonist for season 1, but never a villain. So why is it that whenever I see video essays about him, it's usually contextualizing him as a villain, a victim, how he overcame these struggles? Yes, he did have a journey, but was it really a villain's journey? Or was it a hero's journey in disguise? In today's video, I really want to talk about Zuko and how he's actually gone through the typical hero's journey. He's up there with Aang, because if you really think about it, what is a villain anyway? Villains are made, not born. And if you would have asked me how is a villain made, I would have told you that it's the people who impose trauma on the person, or it's the circumstances, it's the world they grew up in, it's the society, it's their upbringing, it's everything that happened to them. Every small little thing led from one thing to another to them becoming a villain. But that kind of decision is actually made by yourself, by the ego. People choose to become villains because a lot of people go through very difficult circumstances and don't see themselves as the villain. They don't see themselves as the victim. They see themselves as a hero. Now, if you look at Zuko, I can see the argument could be made that at one point he thought he was the victim. At one point he definitely was giving off villain energy. But I don't think he ever thought of himself as the villain. He was very confused. He was muddled in his head. And he always saw himself as somebody struggling to be his own hero. So today, let's go over that hero's journey, shall we? Okay, just in case you weren't paying attention in high school English class, which, let's be honest, most of us probably weren't, and even if we were, we forgot by now. We have literally no brain cells left. Anyways, a hero's journey. There are many, many, many parts to a hero's journey, but today I'm going to briefly cover them to refresh your memory. First, we have the starting period, the ordinary life, where our young hero is just frolicking about before, bam, call to adventure, and meeting a mentor. After he meets said mentor, they go along on their journey, but it's not all flower fields, okay? This is trials and tribulations, problems and pitfalls, but as a result, we often get new skills or experience growth. However, that's not the end of the line. Unfortunately, we do have to experience death and rebirth in order to finally reach a revelation that will, in turn, change us for the better. Once we're finally changed and we've stepped into the shoes of a hero, we finally experience atonement and reward. And by the time we return to our humble little village or wherever we came from, we are a changed person. That's the hero's journey, and now let's contextualize it in terms of Zuko. It is absolutely diabolical how many takes this has taken, and if you notice any change in lighting, pretend that you didn't. Let's move on with the story. This is Zuko's ordinary life. Yes, he has a terrible backstory. Some horrific events have happened to him. He's been banished, he's been abandoned, he's been criticized, he's been ridiculed, and yet that's exactly why he's stuck in the past. These traumatic events happened to him, and ever since then, his energy is right there in that moment, in that fight or flight response. He can't get over it. Instead, he becomes familiar with it. He gets so used to feeling that stress response that becomes his whole personality. That's his whole story. And now he's comfortable there. Everything that he does just reaffirms his addiction to suffering. And when your personality constructs your reality, constructs your worldview, you start to look for those signs.
You're just a banished prince. No home, no allies. Your own father doesn't even want you.
And he considers you a miserable failure for not finding the Avatar. Why would he want you back home, except to lock you up where you can no longer embarrass him?
You're the Firelord's son. Spreading war and violence and hatred is in your blood.
My father says she was born lucky. He says I was lucky to be born.
That's rough, buddy. When we live like this and we're constantly reaffirming this negative version of our reality, we start to set goals for ourselves that are going to set us up for failure. We want them to be unattainable. We almost crave that because if we can't achieve our goals, then we can't trust ourselves. If we can't trust ourselves, then we don't deserve anything. And if we don't deserve anything, then we can feel bad about ourselves and we can reaffirm that we are incapable of anything. So think about it this way. Zuko was tasked with something quite literally impossible. The Avatar had not been seen for nearly 100 years. It was a joke, a cruel one at that. But he took it anyway. For 3 years, this poor guy was living on loop. He could have spent his whole life in that bitter space. But then...
I know you don't think there's any hope left in the world, but there is hope. The Avatar has returned.
The Avatar gives Zuko hope.
I know.
When our boy Aang busts out that ice ball and starts penguin sledding across the Antarctic, Zuko is called to action for the first time in years. And what seemed like a lifelong mission, an impossible one at that, suddenly seems attainable. If he does this one thing, he can be welcome home. He can have his destiny restored. But is it so easy to fulfill your destiny alone? A lot of people think that self-development is done by the self, but that's not the way that this world works. We are constantly surrounded by other people and other things. We actually do need sometimes a mentor to guide us that can help us see the things that we cannot. For Zuko, this is Iroh. Iroh is a presence that literally saves Zuko from himself. If he didn't have this figure in his life, he would have derailed from the moment he was banished. He would have become so angry and cruel because of what happened to him that I don't think he ever could have come back, and that may have led him to become the villain. Mentors are important in heroes' journeys because the hero themselves is often naive. They don't know anything. They've been called to action, to adventure, to solve a problem, to fulfill a prophecy. But without the skills, without the knowledge, the wisdom, even if they are a little bit apprehensive to it, they can never truly open their minds to it without having been exposed to that wisdom. So think Gandalf, think Sirius Black or Lupin. These people really helped the main characters of their stories, the heroes, to open up, to consider things from a different angle. That's what Iroh does for Zuko. He is the type of person to not let his anger come out. He rarely has an outburst, and he actually is very loving and kind to most people because of everything that he's been through up until this point. He's constantly telling Zuko things that he later discovers himself. One of my favorite quotes being,
"You must never give in to despair. Allow yourself to slip down that road, and you surrender to your lowest instincts. In the darkest times, hope is something you give yourself. That is the meaning of inner strength."
That's it. That's the message that Zuko learns by the end of his hero's journey. And even though he didn't accept it from Iroh from the get-go, the fact that he had this presence, this example in front of him that he lived with for years, this actual father figure almost, this guide, he was able to then open his mind to the possibility that he could live life a different way, that he could be the hero of his story.
What would Uncle do?
This is where we truly start to see Zuko's character begin to develop. In season 2, episode 2, he meets Song, this Earth Nation girl who was once a refugee and has now built a life here with her mother. Over dinner, they bond over the loss of a father, both claiming that they haven't seen their father in many years because of the war. However, this is Zuko's first introduction to how the Fire Nation has hurt more people than just him. And perhaps his father's goals are not necessarily aligned with Zuko's inner humanity.
The Fire Nation has hurt you. It's okay. They've hurt me too.
His whole worldview comes crashing down in this moment, and it sits so uncomfortably with him in that episode and the next that he feels the need to separate himself from his mentor, Iroh.
I need to find my own way.
Being separated from his mentor, Zuko learns how to get by on his own. In episode 7, he meets Lee, this tiny little street rat who he actually sticks up for. And by defending him against bullies, he's able to get a meal and shelter for the night. He also begins to bond with Lee to the point of protectiveness. And when Lee uses the knife that he gets from Zuko to stand up to the guards, which then puts him in harm's way, Zuko immediately comes back to protect this little kid. However, in order to protect him, he has to use firebending. And what happens when he uses firebending? I wonder. It's not like the Firebenders are committing genocide. It's not like they're an imperial force. Ha ha ha. Of course, this would be received well, even if he was using it for good. Yeah, you guessed it. Lee immediately is like, yo, you are the enemy. What are you doing? Get away from me. And so is basically everyone in the village, rightfully so. But what I'm trying to get at here is that he needs to go through this. He needs to be in the shoes of other people. We're starting to see cracks in Zuko's armor, in his shell, in this persona that he's carried for so long. And what happens as soon as this comes into the picture? Azula's back to provide another distraction, okay? This is a running theme. She comes in episode 8, she fights with him, he's distracted by, the fact that he has to fight her, and oh my god, she's trying to capture the Avatar, but no, that's my job. I'm supposed to be capturing the Avatar. That's how I get my honor back, right? She immediately pushes him back into his old personality. And on top of that, goes after his mentor. And this is what I'm talking about, man. Azula is an inhibition to his character growth. We move on to the next episode where he is now so distracted by Azula that he's trying to get Iroh to teach him how to bend lightning in preparation for his next confrontation with her. Unfortunately, he can't do it. Not only can he not conjure it himself, he can't even redirect it. And that frustrates him to a degree we've never seen before. It's the first time that we see Zuko cry.
You've always thrown everything you could at me. Well, I can take it, and now I can give it back! Come on! Strike me! You've never held back before!
This is an entirely new emotion to us, the viewer, but also, I think to himself, he hasn't let himself cry ever since the day that his father punished him. I don't think he's cried a single tear since then. And it is so important, you guys, to actually feel your emotions, because if you don't let yourself feel them, they will remain inside of you. That also keeps us living in a loop, because our emotions are now fueling our unconscious mind, and our unconscious mind is then communicating that to the body. By this point in time, Zuko has failed at Agni Kai's, he's failed when he refused to fight his father, he's failed to find the Avatar, and he's failed to capture the Avatar about a dozen times. This is just the last straw. His self-esteem is crushed. His whole life has been one example after the next that he can't do things right. He just wants the storm to hit him at this point. He just wants to be hit by it so he can prove to himself that he's not worthless. But even this is a failure. He can't even get hit by lightning when he asks for it. After this, we don't see much of Zuko for the next couple of episodes, but by the time that we do, he and his uncle are on their way to Ba Sing Se, and we start to see yet more sides to Zuko. First, we see him making friends. This is albeit just for a couple episodes before Jet finds out he's a firebender and turns on him, but after so much isolation, connection is truly key, and he is making friends with other guys for the first time probably ever. He's lived an isolated life inside the royal palace, where he had absolutely no other male figures besides his dad, which is not a good male figure to have in your life. So it's really beautiful to see. And then we get the episode where he goes on a date with Jin. He's so awkward and out of his element. He's just completely dumbfounded by this normal interaction, just a dinner with a girl. But trying new things is so important to character growth. When we try new things, we're not only opening ourselves up to a learning experience, we're also opening ourselves up to somebody else's experience. Connection to other people is how we truly experience humanity. We start to care about this other person's interests, this other person's thoughts, this other person's philosophies. And it's really cute to see in Zuko. We have the running sequence and how they make it to this place, and she really wants to show him these lights, but unfortunately, they're not on. But because he now cares for her and cares about her and how she's feeling, he takes a risk for her happiness. So it was just really sweet to see. It was nice. At this point, he's experienced a lot of growth. We've seen Zuko live a normal life, and we're rooting for him at this point, I think. At least, I know I was. And in episode 17, he finds out that the gang is also in Ba Sing Se, and that for a split second puts him back into I need to capture the Avatar mode. But his uncle's response is,
There's nothing wrong with a life of peace and prosperity. I suggest you think about what it is that you want from your life and why.
I think it's so important that we as human beings reflect on what we actually want from life and why. Because half of the time, the things that we think we want were not even ideas that we formed ourselves. They're either ideas that we got from societal expectations or social norms. They're ideas that we got from our family members. They're ideas that we got from somebody else that's important to us. It's just not really what we want out of our life. And so with Zuko, what exactly is he going to do when he captures the Avatar? This leads directly into his death and rebirth sequence. We've now seen 3 distinct sides to Zuko. First, we have the baseline Zuko. This is the banished prince. He has suffered. He has had to fight for everything, tooth and nail. That persona died when he cut off his hair at the beginning of season 2. Now he's living as persona 2, which is Lee, a regular dude in the Earth Nation. The third persona to Zuko we've already met in season 1, and it's the blue spirit, okay? The blue spirit is a persona that Zuko takes on when he doesn't want to be seen as the prince. I mean, physically, he literally has to do it to maintain anonymity. I think I'm saying that right, but I also think that I might be saying anonymity, whatever. To maintain his privacy, he has to be the blue spirit. And in season 1, he uses the blue spirit to actually save Aang from General Zhao. I think that's really significant. He's doing something good, ultimately, even though he's framing it in the context of I want the Avatar for myself. In season 2, episode 17, he's doing the same thing again, framing his actions as, I'm gonna capture the Avatar. This is why I'm getting to Appa first so that I can draw him in. But his uncle begs him to reconsider. And Zuko's response to that is,
I know my own destiny, Uncle.
Is it your own destiny? Or is it a destiny someone else has tried to force on you? Who are you? And what do you want?
if you had no ties, no responsibilities, no financial troubles, no enemies, what would you do with your life? What would you do with your life if you were truly free? That's the real question here. Before, Zuko had all these responsibilities in his head about getting his honor back, and only his father can restore that to him. And to do that, he has to do this. And if he doesn't, then this is gonna happen. And if Azula gets him, then this is gonna happen. He had so many things distracting him up until this point. He's never stopped to ask himself, what is his purpose beyond that? When we get busy in our lives, when we get busy and we have things to do, people to see, places to be, right? We have responsibilities. Then we start to ignore ourselves. That's the biggest problem with, I think, everyone. These days, I once saw this, not meme, it's not a meme, but I think of it as a meme. Basically, it was this joke saying that if you want to hide something from a man, the best place to hide it is within the man himself, because he'll look anywhere but within. And to me, I just found it to be the perfect meme because it's so true. Rarely do we look inside of ourselves for the answer. We are constantly looking outside of ourselves for the answer to our problems when we should be looking on the inside and asking ourselves, what do we really want out of life? What is our real struggle here? And what is our real goal here? In this moment, Zuko decides to let Appa go. And because of that, he severely struggles in the next episode. He's having a freaking fever dream. Literal fever. He's got the shakes, the shivers. It's basically like a heroin withdrawal happening. And it's literally just because he decided to do the right thing. Isn't that crazy? Man, this how people be acting after they say something nice to somebody who did them dirty. Shaken up in there. But anyways, who is the voice of the evil dragon in that dream? It's Azula. This is what I'm talking about. This woman is a distraction and a setback. She is the voice telling him,
I'm not tired.
Relax, Firelord Zuko. Just let go. Give in to it. Shut your eyes for a while.
see what I'm talking about? Who is the toxic person in your life? Think about that. Because I bet that there is at least one Azula in your life that is holding you back, that is distracting you from what you really want and constantly keeping you in the same habits, doing the same things over and over again. Ask yourself who the Azula in your life is, and please, 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 please stop letting them have a hold over you, okay? Anyways, let's get back to Zuko.
It will not be a pleasant experience, but when you come out of it, you will be the beautiful prince you were always meant to be.
This is absolutely beautiful from Iroh. It really encapsulates how Zuko is the hero. He's not a villain. He's not a victim. He just needs to claim his identity as the hero. This happens a couple episodes later in the season 2 finale, where he is given a choice, right? Is he going to side with the Avatar and his uncle, or is he going to side with his sister? He didn't even have to put himself in that position, but the reason he gets into that position in the first place is because he challenges Azula. Instead of walking away, no, he decides to challenge her. I'm telling you, a distraction, a complete distraction. Do not give in to your demons, guys. Do not do what this man did. Just flee. That is a moment to flee. Anyways, he bonds with Katara when they're both in the catacombs. And after Song and Jin, he finds it way easier to open up to a girl. This is the first time that he actually lets somebody touch his face. And it's so meaningful because he really struggles to open up to people and to trust someone. But he now has reached a point in his character development that he's able to do that. However, he's still open to manipulation because, you know, people use each other to reaffirm their addiction to suffering and victimization, and we call that normal these days. And because Azula appeals to his old ideals, saying,
Prince Zuko, you're a lot of things, but you're not a traitor, are you? I need you, Zuko. You will have your honor back. You will have Father's love. You will have everything you want.
You know what Azula represents? Azula represents all those voices in your head, okay? That's why in the end, all the voices in her head got to her, because she is the voice in your head. And I love Azula, don't get me wrong, I actually really like her as a character, but in the context of Zuko's arc, straight menace, okay? Straight menace. After he decides to side with her, she says,
You restored your own honor.
And by this point, this man is fully confused, fully in conflict with himself, because it doesn't feel like he thought it would feel. Oh, you've restored your honor, but he just feels like shit. I feel like we've all had a moment like this in our lives where we work so hard for something, we're literally tunnel visioning for it. We've ignored being in the present moment and sacrificed, I don't know, family, friends, sleep, health, food, for this one thing, and by the time we achieve it, we're just like, wait, this didn't actually give me the happiness that I thought it was supposed to give me. And it's because no one can give you that. You have to give it to yourself. I think most people agree that growth isn't linear and that sometimes we relapse or take a step backwards or take a pause, and that's okay. I also think it's okay, but there are some people that I've met where they have reached a point of self-awareness and they think that self-awareness is enough, where like the self-awareness is almost them being reborn. Oh, I know now. Oh, I know now. Yep, I know. Okay, and I'm not telling you that you have to fast track your progress, but you don't seriously think that's the end of the line, right? You don't think that experiencing rebirth actually changes you. No. It's how you react to that rebirth, right? Zuko made a decision. His old self died, and he was starting to be somebody else, but he had a relapse, and a huge one at that. And when he goes back to the Fire Nation, it's really, really uncomfortable for him. He is not happy. He is not at ease. He finds that his old self and his old lifestyle no longer fits him. And when he realizes that he's been misled and used by his sister yet again, he's put into that same position where he's constantly living in stress mode. He can't even relax with his girlfriend because he's so stressed. He literally sends out an assassin on the gang. And at the same time, he's got this massive guilt about betraying his uncle, the only person who ever supported him unconditionally, and he really struggles with this. He can't even go in to see him. When he does go in to see him, he tries to be vulnerable for all of 2 seconds before he gives into anger, and that anger just continues to fester and grow until, insert that scene here. This is the fundamental part. He doesn't know the difference between right and wrong anymore. This is where most people will stop in their self-development journey. They will go to therapy, or maybe they have this revelation because of a drug trip or by talking with someone, or maybe they just came upon it in a dream or whatever, but they've reached self-awareness. They know this about themselves, that they're not comfortable living the way that they have been. They know that they don't know the difference between right and wrong anymore and what they should do. But what really matters in that moment is, what are you going to do about it, right? Are you going to choose to do the right thing? Or are you going to choose to continue in this cycle where you kind of discover the truth. You make this revelation and then you go back to your old habits, you experience troubles again, you experience failure again, you die, you're reborn, you reach the same revelation, and then boom, you're stuck in another kind of loop, except instead of being stuck in the loop that was the beginning of your life, right? Zuko being stuck in the loop of wanting to capture the Avatar, he would have been stuck in this constant loop of, I didn't capture the Avatar and I have everything that I'm supposed to have, but I'm not happy, right? He would have subjected himself to a life living that way if the Avatar had actually been dead, but you know what I'm talking about. That's the first key revelation that Zuko has. The second key revelation that he has before making his ultimate decision to finally change is he discovers the truth about his ancestry. And this really helps him contextualize everything that he's dealt with. Generational trauma is real, guys, and it will haunt you, I promise. So why not learn about your family history? There is value in doing that, and you will understand a lot more about maybe why your parents are the way they are. And it doesn't mean that that justifies anything, by the way, but it will also help you understand your own personal struggles. I was able to identify a lot of the cycles that my family has been stuck in for generations. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna walk away from that cycle. I'm not gonna be the one to fall into the same thing. And that's kind of the same realization that Zuko is hit with. He has to restore balance to everything that happened within his own family. How does one go about restoring balance to a family that has been out of balance for so long? Zuko manages to do this in season 3, episode 11, when he finally confronts his father. This is the moment where Zuko is taking responsibility for himself. He's no longer going to be batted around by other people, by other people's ideas of his destiny. He's not going to follow in those footsteps. In fact, he actually backs down. Even though he confronts his father and is able to tell him that the Fire Nation is in the wrong and that his cruelty was never correct, he doesn't actually bring himself into a physical fight with his father, not because he's scared, but because he knows that's not his destiny to fulfill. He has accepted that that is the Avatar's destiny, that his father will get what's coming to him, and his destiny, Zuko's personal destiny, is to help the Avatar fulfill that. He is finally living in the unknown. He's not trying to move things around himself. He's not trying too hard to kind of get respect from someone, get love from somebody, get an apology from his father. No, he's beyond that now. But Zuko faces a little dilemma.
Why am I so bad at being good?
Prior to his realizations that he was in the wrong, Zuko let rage permeate his entire being. That was his fuel, his motivation. That actually was the spark to his firebending. But now he's trying to change that. He has different aspirations. How do we become the person that we aspire to be? Through repetition. We act like we have what we want. We act like we are who we want to be. And slowly but surely, those dispositions become second nature. That self-discipline builds your belief in yourself. Zuko at the very beginning is confused because he's like, I made the decision that I was in the wrong before, and now I'm trying to help the Avatar fulfill his destiny. Why is this so hard? Well, to that I say, it's just your brain has to catch up to your body, and your body has to catch up to your brain. Even though he now has a different set of beliefs and assumptions, he's not used to behaving that way. It does take time. How much time? That depends on the person, that depends on the wounds, that depends on the healing. Time is just a social construct anyway, so we should never bash on ourselves for taking too long to get over something or to change our behavior, change our habits. I really think that Zuko strikes a chord with the audience here, because how many of us have gone through a period in our lives where we're like, this doesn't serve us anymore. I want to try something different. But then we relapse or we catch ourselves going back to old habits and we hate ourselves for it because we're like, what about all the progress that I thought I'd made? Well, let me tell you, he is making progress slowly but surely. He is allowed into the team, but not completely. He has to go through atonement. He is literally given a field trip with everyone in individual episodes, and that serves as the vehicle to illustrate him actually changing. With Aang, he learns the secrets to firebending. He gets his spark back from a different source, the true source of firebending. I think this episode is beautiful because not only do we see him bond with Aang and kind of have this brotherly relationship with him, we also get to learn that fire is not just destruction, it's beautiful. It's so colorful. colorful, full of life, full of energy. Real fire is the fire that we have within ourselves. Isn't that just so like chef's kiss for Zuko's character? Everything has been about how he has had to look within himself to change himself and become his new self. What I just said, think about it. That's how Iroh be talking. He'd be talking about the self and hiding from the true self and how we have to discover the true self to become our real self. You know what I mean? That's exactly what his whole character is. It's about discovering his inner fire and what he really wants out of life. He then has his field trip with Sokka. He shows solidarity when Sokka expresses that he has to regain his honor and try to save his dad. He really understands that feeling and he decides to go with him. Now he gets to bond with a new bro, and it's just so nice to see two dudes chilling in a war balloon talking about their girlfriends. And speaking of which, that is part of Zuko's reward here. Because of these next two episodes in the Boiling Rock, he's able to reconnect with May after initially only giving her a goodbye letter. And he realizes for the first time just how much she actually cares for him. Let's think back on how he used to berate her for not showing any emotions at all, and how he was happy with her, but it's not like he was letting himself really think that he deserved that relationship, right? She kind of confronts him about it and is like, you could have done this in person, you should have trusted me with this, and you know, even though you did this horrible thing and you dumped me, I'm still 100% with you. I still care about you and I still love you. Zuko is also rewarded in the sense that he stops seeing Azula as a person that he has to confront every time he sees her. If he's forced into a confrontation, he will do it, and to protect the people around him, he will do it, but he's no longer chasing after her until he gets hurt, if that makes sense. He knows where his limits are. His last field trip of atonement is with Katara, and I think this is the biggest one. We're initially led to believe that this is about him regaining trust from her, and in a lot of ways it is. It's also about Katara and her development, but that's enough for a whole separate video. I think for Zuko, this is a test of whether or not he trusts in himself. There's still some projection going on here. This is why he really feels the bitterness and the hate, the quip of the words that Katara is yelling at him. It's because part of him really does believe that he doesn't deserve this and he can't be trusted. He's made the wrong decision before. What's to say he won't make the wrong decision again? So it's really nice where in this episode, he backs down and lets her figure her own stuff out. He does go with her and helps her to seek revenge, but he never judges her for any of the choices that she makes in the episode. And by the end, he agrees with Aang that that's what she needed. She needed to just see the man and let go of what she had been holding on to. His reward for this is that he has built discipline to the point where he can now trust in himself. And that trust in himself is manifested a few episodes later when he actually is able to redirect lightning. Albeit, he wasn't able to redirect all of it because of the form that he took it, which was to protect Katara. And I think that's not a coincidence, right? That's why their whole relationship has been on mistrust and trust. For both of those characters, it's a huge thing. But I digress. Anyways, his reward is that he gains enough self-efficacy to the point where he can bend lightning by the end of the series. Something that he couldn't do before. He's done it. He's returned, changed. He's taken his rightful place as Firelord, and he vows to make this nation one of peace. This was always his journey, and this is exactly how he was meant to get here. That's something that I want you to understand. That maybe it's not about a side quest. It's not about revenge or becoming a villain or having to go in circles. Why not claim your journey as your own right now? You are the hero of your journey. Everything is unfolding exactly as it's supposed to be. The series of events, however unfortunate they may seem, will be able to be looked back on and think, hey, I don't regret a single thing because all of those things led me here. And I'm so happy with where I am now that I could never wish for anything to be different. Being able to detach from the negative experiences and people in your life is going to give you a new lease on it, give you a new experience, new sensations. And that's exactly how you level up. That's exactly how you earn your redemption like Zuko. And if his story is inspiring to you, then go ahead and look at what keeps you anchored to your past. What are some things that no longer serve you? What are some places of hope that you can find? Who are some people that can help you in this journey to become the person that you want to be? Only you can give yourself your honor. So go ahead, claim it today.